Thank you, Representative and Senator, for all your advocacy around this. Next, we'll hear from leaders within sectors in our state that, like Senator Murray and Representative Alzate mentioned, will be directly affected through the positive impacts of additional revenue and funding in our state. First, I'd like to introduce Larry Pertill, President of the National Education Association of Rhode Island.
Thank you, and thanks to both of you for your advocacy and for doing this. You know the facts. The facts are that this only impacts about 1% of our top income earners and those who are making over $500,000. We also know that it helps bring in line with what everyone else is paying percentage-wise. It's time to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share. It also, as you can see by the chart up here, is very popular among Rhode Island voters. Those are the facts, but I want to talk to you about the impact it can have on education. The last 2 years with COVID have certainly highlighted the discrepancies between communities and what students have available to them. And now, as we move on from the pandemic, we are dealing with social emotional issues of students from pre-K through higher ed that we've never seen before. We are also dealing with COVID loss. I don't want to call it learning loss because the fact was that teachers and students and parents did a phenomenal job over the past 2 years. But the fact is students lost seat time. They were at home. They were lacking in person. And for some, they lacked the technological skills and the technology to keep up with in-classroom activities. All of this puts a burden on the school system, and that burden needs funding. And while we just heard that, yes, there is a lot of federal funding coming in, but it's a one-time thing. And while it will help this year and next year, we need a permanent funding solution, a revenue source to help all our students, across Rhode Island communities and within communities to make sure that every student has access and equality and equity to a top flight education. And what we really need the money for, universal pre-K, we need it for access to healthcare systems, and that includes mental health, which we were working with the previous governor on. And if you talk to teachers, they'll tell you that is the #1 issue coming into their classroom. We need more mental health programs for students and their families. But that means more counselors, it means more social workers, and it means after-school programs as well. We also have to deal with food insecurity. We need free breakfast and lunch for all students. And we need to make sure that there are before and after school programs to help students. And lastly, we also need to grow Rhode Island's promise so that every student now has access to higher education, career and technical education, the things they need to be productive in Rhode Island and stay in Rhode Island. And I'll just give you one little example of where something people don't think about, but I sit on the Rhode Island Board of Education, the K-12 Council, and we had a presentation recently about, we're looking at middle school and the high schools, and more students now are working than ever before, middle school and high school students, not to buy a car and not for spending money, but to help their families because their families need that income. And when students are working late into the evening, that impacts their education the next day. We have a lot of students who have to take care of younger siblings. And when you look at, for example, in Providence, absenteeism is up. Well, one of the reasons it's up because students are taking care of their siblings. Students are driving their parents to work because they only have one car in the family. We need to look at the programs that we provide for these students, and maybe it's not 7 to 2, maybe it's 9 to 3, maybe it's in the afternoon, but programs have to be available. We have to realize we have more and more students coming from poverty. So with all of that, we need a permanent source of revenue for these programs to make sure that every student has the opportunity, and that's what we're talking about, opportunity for every student. So I want to thank you again for doing this. $144.5 million will help a lot of kids. Thank you.